Next up, we have a conversation between two incredible artists, Questlove and Lilly Singh. Questlove is a 5-time Grammy Award-winning musician, producer, and he's also a best-selling author. He's also the musical director for The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon with his band, The Roots. You met Lilly yesterday. She's an entertainer, an actress, a producer. She's a writer, she's a creator, and 14 million people love her. Lilly and Questlove embody the new creative, people like all of you who are multifaceted and span across a lot of different creative disciplines. They'll be chatting with Adobe's own Jason Levine. So please join me in welcoming Lilly, Questlove, and Jason.
Hello.
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 This is amazing.
It's very quiet in here.
It's super quiet.
We're going to change that.
Okay.
Yes.
There it is.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Wanted to make sure you were out there, that's
right.
all.
Yesterday, y'all cheered for Fonz louder than us.
That's right. And undo. And undo.
And
All
I
right.
respect that.
So I wanted to really talk about something that Anne was just mentioning, which is actually about discipline and the fact that the two of you really represent the modern-day creative. You have your hands in so many different things, whether it's music or comedy or acting or Broadway or television or YouTube. And so it's actually a two-part question. The first part is, it's not about really balance, but how do you focus and discipline your energy when you're working on so many different things? That's really the second part of the question. But the first thing is, how do you identify as a creative? In other words, if someone said to me, what are you? What are you? It might be hard to answer, but I would say like musician, which if anyone heard me sing that note yesterday, maybe not.
I tend to play it down, so I just say I do stuff.
Nice. Nice.
No, because, at this rate of my life, I'm in there's like different stages, so I'm sort of in the humble brag level of everything I do just sounds that cool,
Right. Yeah.
So I don't even I forgot about Hamilton, that sort of thing.
Right, okay, yeah.
So, at this rate, I'm at a very lucky place in my life where when I talk about literally having 19 jobs, I'm just really interested in working on the things that I am passionate about. And the one advice I always give to people is, if you're willing to wake up at 4 a.m. for it and go to sleep at 3:59 a.m. for it, then that's your life's mission. And I just happen to have about 19 of those.
Nice. Nice.
Sweet, that's awesome. I always say the same thing. If you forget to eat, that's my thing. If you forget
I wish
to
I could forget to eat.
For me, my job is still really confusing to a lot of people. I've been called an influencer, digital creator, YouTuber. I had to kind of figure out what to call myself as well because I used to travel a lot from Toronto to LA, and that's when I had to define what I do because I would cross customs every single time. Like, what do you do? And I'm like, this question. So first I would say YouTube. And then they'd be like, oh, so you are the CEO of YouTube. I'm like, no, I'm not the CEO of YouTube.
You might as well be.
You're so sweet. I like you, good guy.
So much love.
And then I would say, I'm a comedian. Then I'd be like, okay, tell me a joke. And okay, I'm just gonna say entertainer. But then people look at me strangely because I think they assume stripper, which is, nothing's wrong with that. Nothing's wrong with that, but I just got that energy. Like the person would always be like, what? So I'm like, listen, I'm a digital creator. That's what I say. I prefer entertainer because, I like writing, I like acting, I like performing music, I like public speaking, I like all that stuff. So I like entertainer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so along those lines too, and sort of working through all of these different disciplines, something that I think everyone in here can identify with is really that moment of sort of creative roadblock, getting stuck. And like Questlove, you're the band leader on The Tonight Show. You have to play every day. You tape every day. You have to be on. You're the timekeeper.
Yeah.
You can't, you're sick, you don't feel it. Some days you're hot, some days you're not. It doesn't matter. You gotta be in the pocket.
Yeah.
How do you stay in the pocket every day, figuratively speaking?
Well, I'm also in the I hate saying the word 25th. I wasn't always this disciplined. Having entered show business at the age of 5, working for my dad, who was he was like a notable, famous doo-wop singer back in the 50s.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
growing up in the family show, after seeing this like all my childhood, which basically means I just fined you $20 for that drum roll. you learn discipline quickly.
Right.
But as far as like staying focused, no one comes into the gate, uber disciplined, and
Right.
That takes nurturing. And,
Right. Well, and is it always perfect? Does it matter? I mean, you're collaborating with others. You're with a band of people.
It's weird because I'm known for my very strict color within the lines, disciplined drumming. Right. That's like my reputation. Right. Is that a computer or is that a real human being?
Playing against samples and everything else.
Yeah,
without
but then
dropping the beat.
I'll say around 2000, working with D'Angelo, he sort of took me out of that and really wanted me to, literally, he was like, I want you to play like a drunk 6-year-old. And I was like, well, number one, that's illegal.
Bad reference.
Yeah, but that's the thing. He wanted me to play like I was 10 years old, like an amateur.
Right.
Because he said that it had more human elements and human quality to it. So I had to spend like a year unlearning all the discipline that my father, as the world's hardest band leader, the guy that finds you $20 for a fill.
Right, that's right.
That sort of thing. I had to unlearn that stuff. So.
Right. And I think that actually makes sense because I went to music school, many people went to design school, art school. You learn all these rules.
Yeah.
Fortunately, at some point, you start breaking them, which kind of leads me to you, Lilly, which is, again, making videos, YouTube. You got to make them every day. You may not feel like making them every day. And if you don't put them out frequently, viewership goes down. We love that algorithm now.
God bless the algorithm.
That's right. I mean, that's just a reality of that world.
Right.
So I'm sick. I don't want to do it. How do you bring yourself to do it? How do you get that fuel back and just
Right. I mean, I started making videos in 2010. And when I started in 2010, it was still very fresh. It was very exciting. I was still learning how to edit and how to shoot and comedic timing and all those things. And so I was super inspired, very motivated all the time. I'm still very motivated, but the reality of the situation is humans get used to things, right? So if you do a lot of anything, eventually you're gonna be like, even though I really like this thing, like I've done so much of it, so I'm struggling to wake up with that same motivation, that same energy. So I'm a big believer of scheduling inspiration, actually. I proactively go out of my way to consume a lot of creative content. So if I'm feeling like, I'm having a really hard time writing a script or coming up with a video idea, I watch a bunch of movies, I go to see some musicals, I go to a theater, I just try to consume as much content as possible, just to kind of spark some light bulbs in my brain again. And I proactively schedule
and you block out this time.
Yeah, it's not just passively where I'm like, okay, today if someone says something cool and I'm like, that's a cool idea. I'm like, no, today I'm going out and I'm getting inspired by something today.
Creative pruning.
Yeah.
But oftentimes when I don't have an idea, I do challenges. So the good thing about like shuffle culture with streaming services is, there's 3 million songs you can discover. So oftentimes I will just shuffle a random playlist. I'll play songs backwards.
Right.
I'll pick a book and just pick a middle word and trying to figure out how to build upon that idea. So it's way easier now than it was before the information age.
Sure.
But it's also harder too because I feel like the information age has numbed us to. I feel like the most important part of creativity is boredom, and that's the one thing I stress to anybody that's in the creative world. You have to allow yourself to have silence so you can hear the ideas, to be bored. So I recommend like at least 2 days out the month where you just spend that Saturday in your pajamas, no iPhone, no checking your... Just
sounds lovely.
Let boredom hit you so that inspiration can come in.
I love this idea of like the shuffle culture because you're right, sort of the concept of doing anything uninterrupted these days is, it's not foreign, but it's
Well, it's hard.
It's hard, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
difficult. So, and that applies to watching a video quickly. 5 seconds of this, 10 seconds of that,
Exactly,
right? It clouds everything, so you need to sort of free that space so that you can recharge and rebuild.
Yeah.
All right, well, something that's really close to me, and I know for both of you, is this concept of mentors and mentorship, and I've talked about it on a lot of our Adobe live streams that we do, and I was going to share this with you today. So I have, like, my very first mentor, I'll never forget, Mrs. Elaine Benedict, Mrs. B, if you're out there somewhere, first grade, inspired me to play piano, inspired me to learn music, to do all of these kinds of things, and she was just this incredible woman, and it was just the way that she spoke, the way that she approached everything. And there was no failure, because as long as you were out there and just doing it and in it, she made you think it was possible. So to both of you, and I know, like Questlove, in your book, Creative Quest, the dedication is to your father, whom you would say is, your first mentor.
Yeah.
So, like, what are your thoughts on mentors that you've had and mentoring others? Because you're icons for the culture.
It's kind of weird because especially in hip hop, being grandfathered in, or sort of like, having a bigger artist introduce you,
Right.
is sort of, nepotism is the name of the game. And the Roots actually entered the game without an actual, like, there wasn't a Lil Wayne to bring us in, or we weren't part of the Native Tongues collective. But I will say that of all the people, and there have been millions, my manager, Richard Nichols, my father, but I'll say that probably James J. Dilla Yancey, who, there are musicians, but then there's musician. Like the musician that inspires the musician.
Yes.
That was a lot of musicians.
It's a lot of musicians, yes.
And I'll say with him, he really taught me how to absorb music as opposed to listening. Because again, in hip hop producers tend to, they'll buy massive record collections. Right. They'll choose a day where they gather 500 records.
Right, and just listen straight. Right,
Come home, and
right.
then they'll just put it on 45 and listen, and get nothing. And he literally treated, besides Pharrell Williams, Jay Dilla was the only person I knew that treated his craft like it was a job. Like, he got up at 7 in the morning, very disciplined. He would clean the house, listen to these 29-minute free jazz songs just for that 3-second bit at the 12th minute of the song, and then inspiration hits him. So he taught me that you still have to love music, because once you get into your craft, sometimes you're not a fan anymore, and you're an artist, and the people you looked up to are now your peers and not gods that you worship. So he taught me to really still enjoy music while while swimming with sharks.
Right, yeah. And Lilly, for you, and I'm curious, sort of the mentors that have affected your life, but also you are to many, especially very young, up and coming, not even just YouTube culture, but just young people in general. They see you as someone who's done it and is doing it all and has a very, at times, self-deprecating attitude about it, right? Not afraid to be goofy, not afraid to really show that you're human. How does that responsibility, sort of affect you, and what are your thoughts about that?
Well, first off, in terms of my mentors, who I am personally, I have to say comes a lot from my mom. And I know that's a very common answer, but it's true. My mom has that immigrant hustle that is instilled in me, that, like, do or die, you have no choice, make this happen. That's very much so embedded into my work ethic. From a professional standpoint, this is going to be day 2 of me talking about Dwayne Johnson on the Adobe stage. But my career, I really try to model. I think Dwayne is the perfect example of breaking barriers and not following a path and creating your own. And the best advice he ever gave me was, when I'm still a YouTube person, but I was like, I really want to do movies and produce things, but people just keep saying, oh, but you do YouTube, you're the YouTube girl. Obviously now, the worlds are kind of merging, but he said to me, when I was wrestling, everyone said, you can't act. You are a wrestler, that is what you do. And then he started acting in movies. Then when he was a movie star, he wanted to have a TV show, Ballers. And everyone was like, you don't go from movies to TV, you just don't do that. And he just taught me that, you have to buck tradition. You can't follow these paths
Right.
that people have laid out because everyone else in the past has done it this way. If you want to be the girl that goes from YouTube to movies, back to YouTube, and does all the things, then you will be that person
Right.
because you will create that path. So that was really, really strong advice for me
Yeah.
because we often get labeled and categorized in my industry, as
Right.
you get a lot of views, you're going to be the person that gets views. We don't necessarily want your creative input, we want your views. So that was really important for me to hear.
And it is back to that same concept of just breaking the rules, breaking those,
100%, yeah.
those norms and everything, which kind of leads me directly to you into this next question,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of about the importance of just creativity in general for the masses and creative self-expression. Now, the fact that we've kind of, and we are, Adobe are partially responsible for sort of democratizing,
Mm-hmm.
video creation for everyone, especially with the announcement yesterday of
Mm-hmm.
Adobe Premiere Rush. Now that everyone can really do that, it's wonderful to be able to express yourselves, and everyone should, and everyone can, and everyone does.
Mm-hmm.
Does it mean the same? In other words, everyone can do this, and a lot of times it's modeled after others.
Mm-hmm.
But self-expression should be you
Right.
expressing yourself, not you how you think you should be. And I imagine you kind of encounter this.
Right. I mean, I
world
think
you're
for
in.
everyone, it's definitely a journey. When I first started making videos, my first video was bad. It's like super awkward.
Every
Is it
first
still up?
thing
It's
is that.
still up
the
online?
first couple videos I've done are still up. and
Okay.
you'll
No,
see-
the very first one.
The very first one is not.
Put it back
Oh.
up. Put it back up.
Put
And
it back up.
It's not because I'm awkward. It's because I don't believe what I'm saying in that video anymore.
Okay.
But the second and third one are just as awkward, I promise you.
Okay.
I'm like standing super awkwardly and trying to talk in a way that I don't usually talk, and I'm trying to sound smarter and cooler than I actually am in the video. It's just a strange thing to watch. But for me, it was definitely a journey that I had to go through to get to where I am today. Today, when I'm on camera, I'm talking about my pimple, I'm talking about being bloated. I'm like, this is how I feel. This person dumped me. I'm all over the place because I know that people just want to connect with authentic stories and authentic people. And so I do think it's a journey everyone goes through, where you go through this awkward phase of like, I'm telling my story, but like a filtered version of my story because I want people to accept me. But then you realize that true acceptance is actually when you start being authentic.
And that's it, right? It's all about authenticity, and like Questlove, you were saying that before too, right? It's that original, authentic, starting something different, and picking out from your influence these little things that you can build into something bigger.
It's absolutely necessary. I mean, for me, it's also kind of a form of therapy.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
it gives,
absolutely. Yeah.
it gives release, and I'll say that probably the last 5 times that I was bawling, crying, is usually behind a drum set.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, but playing music and doing my art can somehow offer a form of release that not many people get that particular outlet to express themselves.
Right.
So I'm one of the lucky few.
Do you ever see a time where you wouldn't want to play, wouldn't want to be in front of a camera?
I actually encourage that. Sometimes you should walk away just so that you could miss it.
Right.
'Cause-
Come back to it.
Yeah, a lot of times, especially when my last book was out about food, everyone was thrown off. Like, wait, why are you
Right.
writing about food? And
Right.
I was like, no, I'm writing about creativity, but I want to talk about chefs that are creative. And I mean, there was a period where my mentor had passed away, and I sort of felt like I was in the passenger seat without a driver, so to speak.
right.
So I used the last 4 years to explore other things that I'd left my comfort zone
Right.
just so that I can come back to music
Right.
hungrier and
Right.
with fresh ideas. So
Tabula rasa, clean slate.
I encourage people to also, if you're in filmmaking, maybe take up art. Joni Mitchell took up art.
Right. Absolutely.
For the,
Right.
take up art or take up cooking or
Right.
take up another form of creativity.
Yeah.
So that you can come back to it.
Yeah. Awesome.
I could not agree more with everything you just said. And then the second thing I'm going to say is I absolutely do not listen to anything you just said. And I'm the biggest hypocrite in this way because the YouTube machine and the digital world in general, it's very dependent on you constantly pumping out stuff like you mentioned.
Right.
You got to keep putting out videos or you're going to be taken out of the algorithm and people are going to start watching something else. So I put out 8 videos a week. 2 on my main channel,
That's-
6 on my
that's
vlog
insane.
channel. It's a lot of
Insane.
content. What I should do is follow the advice you just said, but my negotiation advice is I try to mix up what type of content I'm doing. So, if I'm doing a lot of comedic sketches and then I find myself burning out a little bit in terms of writing jokes and writing scripts, I go, okay, I'm gonna do something musical for a while, focus on this, use a different muscle in my brain. Then same thing with when I wrote my book. I'm now gonna write long form, use a different muscle in my brain, and that way when I return to those other formats, I kind of feel a little fresher.
Yeah.
That's the less good advice than this piece of advice. So this is less good, this is very good.
Oh, no.
You choose.
All right, so finally, because we're at the end of our time together, I do, yes, I know. I understand that the two of you are really, this is just the beginning of how you're going to be working with Adobe, and I thought maybe you could tell us a bit more of what you both have in the works.
Sure, yeah. I mean, as I mentioned yesterday on stage, I'm partnering with the Adobe Rush team, which is very exciting.
Yep.
But we're also partnering with the Adobe 1324 project.
Right.
So I'm going to have the chance to be a mentor, especially in association with my Girl Love social good campaign. So
Nice.
I'm excited to check out some creators and hopefully offer them some good mentorship.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to be the guy that complains about the state of music and the state of art and how it was back in my day. So I feel as though my contribution is, I'm partnering with Adam Sandow, and we are forming something called Creative House,
Okay, yeah.
which will be a place, we're going to launch it in 2019, and through Adobe, do various projects, gather all the creatives, all the inventors, the innovators, and we'll have various projects, and also through Project 1324. I believe right now we just announced one of our first challenges.
Right.
So we'll do various challenges to engage them in their creativity.
That's amazing. Well, Lilly, Questlove, it's often been said that 3 is a magic number. And I think being here, this combo together, this has been a magical moment for me,
Thank you.
and a truly magical moment having the two of you here at Adobe Max. We're incredibly grateful. Lilly Singh and Questlove.
And
everyone.
fantastic moderator
Oh,
as well.
thank
Thank you.
you.
so much. Thank you.